A very good evening and a warm welcome to everyone joining us for the virtual discussion on My Sustainable Campus. We just had an amazing discussion with students from schools yesterday, and today's discussion is with some of the chosen college and university students to know what they think about sustainability and how they could apply that in their campus. My name is Ashwin Fernandez, and I'm representing QSI Gauge today. And it's a real honor and pleasure for me to make the welcome remarks for this session. The official definition of sustainable development is the idea that human societies must live and meet their needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own. We discussed yesterday that all of us are privileged in many ways to be attending a session such as this because of the access to good education, ability to meet day-to-day needs of life, and so on. We had a great panel, which was moderated by Dhruv Jatti, who is studying at OP Jindal Global University. And I'm eager to hear more about all those thoughts at SDGs and the way forward today, as we are represented, but we have representation from four institutions: Ashoka University, NMIMS, Srishti Institute, and BITS Pilani, Goa. So before that, I would like to welcome our chief guest, Dr. Shalini Rajneesh, IAS. She will be with us shortly, but we will start the program with a discussion. And the moment ma'am is with us, we will interrupt the program to have her keynote address. So Dr. Shalini Rajneesh, as you probably might have heard about, is the Principal Secretary for Primary and Secondary Education at the government. She was the Principal Secretary for Primary and Secondary Education. She's currently the Additional Chief Secretary, Planning, Program Monitoring and Statistics Department for the Government of Karnataka. I will read out her bio the moment we have a ma'am with us. But for now, I would like to pass on to our able moderator, Dhruv Jatti, for taking the session forward and to introduce the students who are going to be talking about SDGs. We would like to keep the intro short because yesterday's session was so action-packed that I thought it's great for us to hear more from this young budding students from various institutions are joining us. So over to you, Dhruv, for your introduction.
Thank you, Dr. Fernandez. Welcome again back to our consecutive program on India's first ever student-led panel on sustainable campuses. Today is led by the college students of India. Like Dr. Fernandez mentioned, we have a diverse set of students from different parts of India who represent different educational backgrounds. To begin with, we have our first panelist from Ashoka University, Mehak Puri. She is a second-year political science honors student who is a part of Project Lakir, which is organized by the Enactors Ashoka, which she represents. Project Lakir aims to create more sustainability by providing women entrepreneurial skills to become self-reliant. Next up, we have Ruthvi Siria, who is from NMIMS, a third-year student in Applied Statistics and Analytics. She is somebody who lives in the present, interested in taking things as it comes. She speaks 3 different languages, Mandarin, French, Sanskrit, and English as well, and she likes to learn new things. She believes in the ideas of social inclusion and reduced inequality. Third up, we have Ambika, who is from Srishti College, Bangalore. She is a third-year student who majors in human-centered design. She understands and interprets different situations from a human perspective, which gives our panel the required diversity to understand sustainable development goals from different angles. She prior has worked on SDG number 16, which is Life Below Water, where she created a portal which educated people on marine ecosystems. Last up, we have Mansa, who is from BITS, Goa. She's the 4th-year student who also wishes to contribute to today's discussion on how universities can encourage startups and the importance of research, and a very important topic that many of us forget diversity, how the SDGs and biodiversity can actually collaborate together. So she's also going to speak about local ecosystems. So once again, I welcome all of them to today's panel discussion. So first, let's head on to Mehak Puri and understand what she has to say about sustainable campuses.
Thank you for the introduction, Dhruv. Hi, everyone. I want to first start off by talking a little bit about the project that I'm currently working with. It's called Project Lakir, and the basic aim of this project is to promote sustainability by engaging the underprivileged by doing so. To facilitate this, we have two identified communities in Delhi, and we provide vocational training to underprivileged women who then make diaries, face masks, pouches, and other handmade products that we sell and supply products to different companies in and around India. All the items that we make are sustainable and environment friendly. And once we go back to college, we aim to start a new chapter with the locals in and around Ashoka University, which is right in the middle of a village in Haryana. Coming to my ideal sustainable campus, two major things that I would personally want to work on are reusing things and energy conservation. Living on a campus and interacting with your peers and promoting this lifestyle to one another will definitely help us go a really long way. For energy conservation, I think it's imperative for our campus to have solar panels, water harvesting and reusing systems, compost bins, and recycling units in place. I understand that each one of them has their own fair implementation charges, but I think it's an investment that will reap great benefits for our future. This is in line with the ninth SDG, that is industry, innovation, and infrastructure, and also the seventh goal, that is affordable and clean energy. The campus space and outlets that are a part of my ideal sustainable campus would be revamped a little bit compared to what we have right now. For example, in residential colleges, we waste a lot of shower water. Instead, by using a shower head regulator that is very readily available in very readily available these days, we can save a lot of water that is not even required, but is definitely getting wasted. All our colleges have food outlets. Some of them use a lot of plastic that can easily be cut down if they just serve food using plates or if we just carry our own tiffins. I'm sure it's not that tough for all of us to carry our own personal cutlery that is environment friendly. Just think about the waste that we generate only because of food packaging. Next, a very important and trendy practice in the current time is thrifting and renting. Instead of buying clothes and garments that are produced using fast fashion, all of us could just resell or rent our clothes to others. Having a thrift page myself, I can attest that the practice is truly rewarding. Fast fashion companies use an enormous amount of energy while underpaying their staff. Living on a campus and having people around us, thrifting is a very easy practice. A college campus is definitely made up of a lot of people: students, professors, admin staff, and of course, didis and bhaiyas who help us. Educating them and spreading awareness is the key to attaining a sustainable campus because at the end of the day, we will definitely need everybody's help and contribution. Having regular sessions with bhaiyas and didis to explain to them the value and importance of switching to an eco friendly lifestyle, along with adding similar material to students' curriculum, will help us all be one step closer to being more aware of our surroundings. In addition to this, I would also like to have regular events and boot camps to reiterate the importance and relevance of having an eco friendly lifestyle. To suggest a few, a collection, e-waste collection. Being college students, we often have a lot of electronics that we might not want to discard. We might want to discard. Using a proper way of doing so is a very healthy practice. Another idea could be promoting the use of menstrual cups instead of sanitary napkins that are extremely harmful for the environment. There are numerous such other issues that we can have a conversation about. The reason why it's very important for us to strike a conversation on such topics is not because people don't know about them. It's solely because most of us are under the impression that living an eco-friendly life is a lot of extra work. We definitely need to motivate each other over here to actively take up these steps because in no way is it a burden. Lastly, and most importantly, I think waste segregation needs to be looked into. On the face of it, the waste is often segregated into different bins, but most of it is mostly mixed once it reaches the landfills. My ideal sustainable campus would definitely have its own recycling centers and composters so that the waste can decompose naturally and not add to more land pollution. Most of these things that I've spoken about are pretty feasible and can be done efficiently. And some of these are already being used at Ashoka University. Since we have a new campus coming up, the students and admin aims to have a campus that is even more sustainable. We definitely have a long way to go, but I'm sure if we all can come together and fight this together, we can achieve it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mehak. I came across a couple of few very interesting points, which we'll get to when we are going to open the floor for discussion. So, meanwhile, let's move on to Ruthvi and understand her idea of a sustainable campus.
Thank you, Zoof, and a very good afternoon to everyone present here. So, coming straight to the topic, what is my idea of a sustainable university? A lot of goals such as quality education, work opportunities, gender equality come to mind. But in the light of this pandemic, we've learned how overlooked personal hygiene was. You must be wondering, what has a university got to do with personal hygiene? Well, when I visited a few state run colleges, I learned how these students were carrying large water bottles from home and often complain about the sanitary conditions of washrooms. This is when I realized the dilapidated state of water infrastructure in these institutions. So, what should students expect when we promise clean water? What is clean water? So, clean water, in my opinion, would be water free from all germs, pathogens, water without bad odor, bad color, or bad taste. And as for hygienic washrooms, clean soap, clean water, and a safe waste disposal mechanism should be adequate. This can help us avoid disease like E. coli infections, dysentery, typhoid, etc. So, I have a few recommendations which could be implemented in my dream sustainable university, and they range from recommendations to management staff as well as students. So, for example, the management panels of universities can employ routine checks of water coolers. To promote student interaction, students can be taught to check the water samples in laboratories for radioactive or dangerous material. This is also an ingenious way of learning through experience. Coolers can be thoroughly cleaned and any water leaks can be prevented. In addition to this, the campus should have frequent coolers placed on every floor so that there is no crowding around them. Students should not be allowed to conduct any activities such as washing hands, face, feet, etc., using the water coolers. Now, canteens are an integral part of the college ecosystem, but they are also potential disease hubs. So, things like safety measures like contactless basins, etc., should be set up to transmit less germs before and after a meal. If permissible, school wells can be set up near the area, where community learning is also a part of setting up school wells, and the young adults might realize the importance of clean and fresh drinking water. Now, coming to toilets, privacy should be of prime importance. A technology can be established where recycling of water for toilets is at least possible. For after all, water is a scarce resource. Now, solar water heaters can also be used to sterilize washrooms. The facilities for girls should have provisions for menstrual hygiene. In many cities like Mumbai are highly prone to floods. This water clogging affects each university, where students are sometimes forced to return in knee-deep waters with gutters overflowing. Universities should have provision for temporary bunks and a stock of food supply to keep students safe in case of such situations. Now, students can also be encouraged to build apps which track water intake, give indications of dehydration, or give the contact information of nearest healthcare professionals. In addition to this, students can build a platform to collect statistics of hand washing facilities of the neighboring universities and compare it to theirs to get an understanding to gauge how well the university is doing. So, on that note, all the above mentioned ideas can be fostered and implemented only when the whole community has a common goal towards water sustainable management and sanitization. I hope that you take a moment to reflect upon these suggestions and implement them in any way that you can. Thank you.
Surely, I mean, these are such great ideas, because when we actually think and try to understand about clean water, we don't spend quality time, in looking into how much we as students in universities and college actually contribute to the wastage. Mehek is well previously mentioned about how showers should be moderated within within hostel rooms, and Ruthvi comes out to explain about how on a larger scale that clean water within campuses should be looked into. So I thank you both for giving your crucial and very important points with regard to clean water, a very important sustainable development goal within India with different type of natural calamities that we face. It's something that should be taken into consideration. So let's move on to Mansa, and let's get a bit more of a perspective on how biodiversity research and local systems have to contribute to sustainable campuses and how students can be involved with it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dhruv, for that. I'm really honored to be here talking about sustainability, something I've been really passionate about for a long time. At this point, the world has finally matured enough to realize that climate change isn't like a debate anymore, whether someone believes in it or not. It's like a fact, and we can see the reality around us. So we all know the problems like tons and tons of plastic waste in our ocean, lack of clean drinking water to people, poverty, hunger, habitat fragmentation, and a huge deterioration in biodiversity. So now is the time we need to focus on solutions, and fortunately, we have the UN SDGs to guide us through them. In the next few minutes, I'll be talking about sustainable universities and how sustainable universities also entail a sustainable society. Then I'll also talk about certain less importance given to sort of facts which are really important to maintain sustainability in our society. So, talking about universities, interdisciplinary and collaborative research are something that are very unique to universities. And in my opinion, this should be taken complete advantage of. Even simple systems like wastewater treatment and recycling involve departments such as biology and chemical engineering, and these contribute a lot towards saving water on a larger level as well. So, having professors, students, and researchers from all fields and disciplines coming together to solve a sustainable problem is something that universities have, and they still need to work on to get on to better solutions in future. Um, Other important things from universities are the courses and projects that are offered. Here I'll talk about one project that I was involved in last year. This was regarding an AC monitoring system where we installed sensors in air conditioners to track their temperature and power usage. This is specifically important in like biology and chemistry labs where the temperature requirement is very specific. So through monitoring these systems, we were able to find out which air conditioners could be turned off at what point in time to conserve a lot of energy. A really important aspect of university life is student-led startups, and these need to be given a lot of importance too, with like the right kind of mentorship, grants, and incubation, so that very creative and innovative solutions can arise from young minds. One such example is the BITS Bairak BioNest incubator on my campus, which helps innovation in the field of healthcare and environment. Some of the products and solutions that have come out of this includes waste segregation and recycling, public health tools, etc. Now, all these examples that I gave might have sounded very specific to campuses and universities, but it's also easy to see that these can be extended and modified easily to a larger scale and can help the society at large as well. So now I'll come to my second point about the more ignored aspects of sustainability. The first one is the local ecosystem. While talking about sustainable universities or sustainability in general, um, we talk about solar panels, reducing our carbon footprint, growing more trees, etc. But we don't focus on the local ecosystem. For example, my campus itself is pretty green from the points that I mentioned, but more than 50% of the trees on my campus are not native to Goa. What does this mean? There are hardly 4 or 5 species of birds which don't build nests on these trees. There are hardly any bees that I notice. In fact, these trees act as invasive species and are very unhealthy to the local ecosystem. So the idea should be to stay in harmony with the local ecosystem and to encourage the thriving biodiversity there, rather than just planting trees in the name of sustainability. Another important factor is the existence of local and native indigenous communities, which are also ignored very often. I'd like to give an example here about a venture in Bangladesh. So there's a community in Bangladesh where women would travel 4 to 5 kilometers to fetch water from the rivers. So this venture helped provide clean drinking water to all these people on a daily basis. After a few days, they noticed that these women continued to go and fetch water from the rivers. When asked why, the women said that their trip to and from the river was the only time where they could socialize and meet each other and talk to each other. Now that they had water in their homes, they couldn't do that anymore, so they preferred going to the river anyways. So while coming up with sustainable solutions, it's really important that it works on ground, that the solutions are local and they're bottom up in nature. Now, talking about indigenous communities, it's also observed that most of the practices are sustainable in nature because they live closer to nature than we do in bigger cities. So, if at all we are building a new campus, it'd be nice to take some time and see the local indigenous practices and try to incorporate them rather than spending years and years of research and resources and mentorship to come up with newer solutions. Other than this, some of the points I'd like to add in terms of my ideal sustainable campus would be a nice thriving reuse market, as Mehak mentioned. It'd be nice to see people share used things with each other, seniors lending their books to juniors, seniors selling their furniture before they graduate, something that is fortunately prevalent in my campus as well. Anything that would actually make us move away from the use and throw culture that we've been a part of for a couple decades. From the administrative perspective, there is a lot that can be done. Composting food waste on a larger level. This has been seen at smaller scales in homes, but for all universities to be implementing this would be really nice to see. Again, banning plastic on campus, not allowing motor vehicles on campus and sticking only to bicycles and walking. These are things that can be implemented on campuses. It's difficult for an entire country to ban plastic at one go, but for campuses, it's possible, and I'd like to see something like that happen. Another important thing is while providing incubation facilities in most technical colleges, at least, we focused on the technical aspects. I'd like to see more encouragement given to social ventures, especially with SDGs in mind, so that both the students and the mentors know what exactly they're solving, and it'll help them get a better perspective of their solutions. So the points given by Mehak and Rithvi were really good, and I completely agree with them. I'd also like to see what Ambika has to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mansa. You've actually mentioned about how being on ground and working towards biodiversity is some sort of a method that students should incorporate during their university days, because that's true. A lot of us spend a lot of time doing research on these projects, and we keep studying it in length, but there's not much of involvement of these students going on ground and actually implementing what they have learned. So this is something that I'm sure universities will gather from and look up to. So let's get to Ambika here. So Ambika, you come from Shristi. You've worked on a project previously which involves life below water, and you feel that there is more scope for universities and campuses in particular to figure out how sustainable development goals can be aligned with student studying. So tell us more about what you think.
Thank you, Dhruv. So I think as Manasla previously mentioned, the way that I look at it is that sustainability comes from a very local space. Oftentimes, when we discuss sustainability among individuals, it does tend to stick to the very surface level understanding of the term. And with modern education, students are heavily disconnected from their local communities. And especially in a country like India, which has such a huge diverse culture, it is key that the education system in its approach can reflect upon this specific aspect. So having an understanding of the local community, the culture, and the language is paramount to becoming sustainable at any level. Especially in universities, sustainability is oftentimes taught by looking at systems in the foreign context and attempting to implement those systems in our local context. But building these local systems from the ground up or reimagining these existing systems to fit our local systems, I would say, is the key to attaining sustainability at a community level. And this, it not only helps build sustainable systems in the local level, but it helps our local sustainable systems go outward and branch outwards. A great example of this would be when it comes to constructing houses, for example, we need to consider that they're not just good to look at, but if they have a minimal carbon footprint. So in this case, we need more architecture students and engineering students, not only building awareness on this aspect, but also coming forward and starting up more sustainable firms that could probably help people in this venture. And with all the environmental and socio-economic changes taking place at an accelerated pace, it is extremely pertinent that students are provided a platform to tackle situations in the now, a platform where they can make sense of their local resources and the social impact that these resources could have. And allowing students to look at their local issues in a very tangible way, it not only enhances their learning, but at the same time, it provides a support to their local communities. For example, students and faculty of Srishti Institute have taken their own method of problem solving to the social and the cultural shifts in the communities around them, using design principles such as frugality and transdisciplinary research that combines art, design, and the environment. So, what this does is it allows their students to expand their vision and look just beyond their curriculum and design consciously for the ever changing world around them. So, how could such systems be mechanized within universities, right? So, an implementation of an SDG cell or an Office of Sustainability that acts as a clearinghouse of projects that engage students from different disciplines. An office that probably provides the internal view, which would include the students and the student groups based on their specific interests, and also an external view where they could look at engagement with policymakers, leaders, not-for-profit organizations, and also other institutions in their vicinity. So, such an approach to the education system, I would say it not only brings about a sense of awareness within the local community, so it's a give and take, but it also allows for engagement among these stakeholders. So, I would say that change, it starts as an individual and then it spreads to a larger community, to a larger collective, and it eventually makes its way across a larger scale from local to global. So, yeah.
Right, thank you, Ambika. So usually when people talk about sustainable development goals, it's goals that came out of the United Nations, and you know how a lot of them questioned with regard to how it could actually be implemented in India. So I like how all of you have come across to explain that SDGs can actually have a local impact. So that's something which I think can be implemented through universities. So if you actually see, all your universities have a large contribution to SDGs to some amount already. So if you actually consider and look at the number of universities that exist in India, it's a very big number. So when you have universities like yours already setting an example, and people like you setting an example for other students, I think together it's very easy to tackle the SDGs at a university level. So let's take it for a hypothetical situation, an example that if there were almost 60 to 70% of the universities in India that were tackling the sustainable development goals, to what extent could actually we as citizens contribute to the SDGs? Do you think that the impact would be more? The floor is open for any of you to answer that.
I would definitely say that, like I mentioned before, it starts with an individual, but the impact that it makes when individuals from different parts and different disciplines and different contexts with different skill sets come together, obviously the impact is much larger. So it does go from a smaller scale and eventually shows up on a larger context or a larger scale.
Right. That's true. So that's exactly why we require some sort of mechanism to help universities implement these goals. So Ambika, you also mentioned something about an SDG cell. So this is something I'm sure Dr. Shalini, when she arrives, will be explaining about an SDG cell that exists, which can actually help motivate the students towards sustainability. So until we get her on online, we'll just get through a few things that we've spoken about. So Mehak, you spoke about thrifting and renting on campus. So if you actually see, thrifting is a term that's very newly introduced to modern language. So if you and Mansa together can explain about how thrifting and renting on campus could be used, you could use a couple of hypothetical examples and explain about how clothes specifically could be used as a medium to reduce wastage.
Can I
Yes,
answer
please.
that? Yeah. So I think with clothes, specifically example right now, because it's become very popular, especially during this pandemic. I'd say fast fashion contributes to a lot of waste. Not only do they not pay their workers well, but they also use a lot of resources in terms of water, energy, just for making the clothes that we buy from different companies, fast fashion companies. With thrifting, you can actually just circulate clothes that you probably don't want to wear anymore, and you can, even exchange them with your friends, because at the end of the day you recognize the fact that fast fashion contributes to so much of you know pollution. So I think thrifting does not only limit itself to clothes, but also to books, to different products that you might not use. And currently I think even in western countries people thrift almost everything, so it's just come to India. And I think it's going to last a good time over here, because all of us have a lot of stuff that we just discard. So instead of discarding it, if it's a mechanism for other people to use it and reuse the things that are already produced, I think
That's
it
great. I
will help
mean,
all of us a lot.
in India, I'm not even able to count the number of students that attend universities. So if you actually see these students reusing each other's clothes at some point or the other for the benefit of society, that be great. Just so, Mansa, do you have anything to elaborate more on thrifting? Has thrifting in any of your colleges been implemented before, or is it yet to sort of commence?
Well, fortunately, BITS Goa has a pretty good culture similar to thrifting. Most of us buy our books from seniors. Even before graduating, all seniors just sell off their furniture, poster, everything that can be sold and is usable. Even with clothes, most of us exchange clothes while going out. I mean, it's advantages for everybody. I mean, you don't have to buy every single thing that you want to in your closet, right? I mean, if your friends have something that you can use, why not? So it works for us. It works economically. It's good for ethical reasons, because of, again, what Mehak said, the workers aren't treated really well in all these garment places. And even for pollution, I mean, somewhere you have a satisfaction that you're also helping the environment at large, and it's a win-win. So thrifting is an amazing concept, and I've seen it work in my university. I
That's
hope
great. I mean,
it just
thrifting is such a
grows in time.
great idea. I'm extremely amused by it because, it's so many universities that exist and very few that have actually implemented it. So in the long run, I'm sure this is going to be a game changer in some sort. So Ruthvi, you spoke something about school wells and how school wells could, college wells and school wells, and how they could be implemented in the communities around. And Ambika, you belong to a college that works on such type of projects on ground. So can the both of you explain about how these wells could be beneficial, and what do you think could be the benefits that take away with this concept?
Okay, thank you for the question. So, the primary reason for introducing school wells was that clean and safe drinking water is available around the university, and also that people, youngsters, young adults, etc., we realize the importance of clean water, because in cities you just open a tap and it's available to you, but when you work for it and when you see what goes into even pumping out fresh water, you might realize, and it might stop you from wasting water henceforth. So that was the only goal behind giving the idea of a school
All
well
right.
or
Okay.
a
Thank
college
you.
well.
Ambika, do you have something to contribute to this question?
Yeah, I would like to say that obviously water is a fundamental aspect, and apart from just looking at the water which is used for human requirement, I think it's also important to look at water and sanitation from the perspective of the marine life themselves, and how us keeping the water sanitized could affect marine life in turn, and not just for our own needs. So I think while looking at the SDGs, they're all very interlinked. So our actions could directly affect more than the human world. So I think that's also important to take
All
into
right. Thank you.
consideration.
Thank you, Ambika and Ruthvi. These are very important points that I've at least learned from this. So let's bring in Dr. Ashwin Fernandez here, and we have Dr. Shalini ma'am as well joining us.
Thank you so much, Drew. A really amazing discussion. I feel bad to stop you, but we have our chief guest here, and it's time to introduce our chief guest, Dr. Shalini Rajneesh, to deliver her keynote. Let me have a quick introduction for Dr. Shalini. She joined the Indian Administrative Service in the year 1989 as a women topper at an age of 22 years. She's a gold medalist in BA and MA in psychology from Punjab University. After joining the service, she completed her PhD in rural development from Mangalore University and MBA from La Trobe University in Australia. Considering her achievements and contribution to women empowerment, public administration, and a passion for implementing government schemes effectively for the welfare of women, the Karnataka State Women's University honored her with a Doctor of Literature degree. She was previously the principal secretary for primary and secondary education. She drafted many game-changing policies to make learning more qualitative, joyful, interesting, and rewarding. And at present, a ma'am is leading the charge of additional chief secretary for the planning, program monitoring, and statistics department for the government of Karnataka. Ma'am recently inaugurated the Sustainable Development Center for Youth Engagement at NIE Mysuru, one of its kind center in coordination with UNDP and Sustainable Development Goals. Ma'am, we are truly honored to have you with us, and the students who are watching on this panel and on YouTube and Facebook, and who will watch this later on as a recording. We would like you to give your message to them, ma'am. And you made it to us out of it despite your busy schedule. We are truly, truly honored. So over to you, Dr. Shalini, ma'am, for your keynote address.
Thank you, Dr. Ashwin. And I request you to share the presentation for the benefit of the viewers. I thank you, QS and iGOG, for inviting me to this beautiful workshop that you have virtually organized for our student clientele. And this is on SDGs. SDGs is the prime mover and shaker as far as my department is concerned. And I would like to share a few ideas where it could be a win-win situation where the planning department, government of Karnataka, collaborates with the other educational institutions so that in the next coming 10 years, we have a new generation altogether, which is SDG sensitive. And through that generation, we are able to create a better world, which is more peaceful, more prosperous, more compatible, more sustainable. So next slide, please. If I think all of us know about the genesis of Sustainable Development Goals and which are those 17 goals as enunciated by the United Nations. Next slide, please. I would come to the important point that how these SDGs can help college and university. This is our main agenda in our dialogue with all the higher education department stakeholders. We all know that this citizen engagement or community participation is very important for NAC accreditation. So this outreach program of SDG in collaboration with government would help not only the college and the university but the students as well. Secondly, most often it is said that most of the educational curricula is so theoretical, it's not practical. But this gives you an opportunity to go into the field and look at real life situations and find solutions to them. So after you do the outreach activities, you can have publications, you can improve your rankings, you can also provide opportunities for innovation and incubation, which is the in thing today. Next, please. How does SDG help students? In the same way, if they do outreach activities on SDG, not only they will have better prospects in the country, but they will have better prospects in the admission situations abroad. Besides that, they will find for themselves a lot of personal and professional enhancement. And more importantly, as Goal 17 talks about networking and partnerships, you will have huge opportunities for networking. And I can't add value to that. It's invaluable. Next slide, please. So how do we plan to promote SDGs through higher education? We have created a cell with the help of United Nations called SDG Coordination Cell, and we are having a nodal officer from the higher education and the primary secondary education also. We interact with them on a regular basis and see that how in different ways the knowledge institutions can collaborate. They can promote education, research, innovation, leadership, etc. We are trying to help universities and higher education institutions to incorporate SDGs in their core operations. Also, we're now planning to take up with the state government to introduce something called a credit system, where children who go for outreach activities, they should be given some credit just as any curriculum activity provides them. Next, please. Particularly speaking, for this target group, SDG 4 is extremely relevant. It says that we should ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. In this, I would like to emphasize inclusive. So what we have to do is we have to bring in that section of society which did not get the opportunity to join education mainstream, be it even at the higher secondary level or at the higher education level. Second emphasis is quality. It's not just for numbers' sake, marks' sake. We want quality education. And what it means is that it should be helpful to you in the life to come. You should really feel it that it's an application oriented education which you cherish all through your life and not just finish with a degree once awarded. And finally, the lifelong learning opportunity. If you are addicted to education, if you understand the value of learning, then it doesn't stop. If I become an IS officer, does my education stop? After becoming an IS officer, I gained PhD degree, I did my MBA, and I'm still continuing to do something or the other every day, every month, every year. So why? Because I know the value of learning. I know that there is so much to do, which probably one lifetime is not enough. But according to my liking, my inclination, I choose the area of expertise. That is what we want our younger generation to get into. From the educational institution side, we expect that they bring in desirable changes in their policies, their curricula, their teacher training modules, and student assessment methods. Next one, please. So we expect the following collaborative support from the colleges and universities. Number one, just as we would like to sensitize you about SDGs various aspects, we would request you to pass it on to the students in very general, very lifelike, life situation, like realistic, practical way, how SDGs are relevant to them and how they can contribute to the overall betterment of society. Secondly, you have a better coordination with the department. So planning department acts as a pivotal department, so that the children who have interest in any other field, we can connect them as a one-stop shop. So internships is one process which we've already initiated. In the COVID time, during lockdown, we asked for online applications, and we've got about 400 odd postgraduate students doing internship in different departments according to their areas of interest. We are looking at periodic capacity building of our teachers, so that once they are updated, obviously they can pass on the information to their students. Very important thing, as we all know, under the SDGs, it's not one department oriented. One goal doesn't relate to one department. It is interdisciplinary and it is transdisciplinary, and so is our research orientation. So if removing hunger or poverty is the goal, can it be done by rural development department alone, or urban development department, or skill development, or any other department for that matter? Similarly, removing hunger, is agriculture department alone responsible, or do we have other MSME and other departments also play an important role? Therefore, it is time that we look at interdependencies and we look at harmonious collaboration of different departments, be it in the academic side or in the governance side. Innovation, it is, I think I can't overemphasize it, because we've got 10 years to go. It's a very, very time bound kind of a program. What we could not do after 70 years or 75 years of our independence, are we going to be able to do it in next 10 years? Can we ensure that there is no one poor? Can we ensure that there is no adverse climate change effect, and so on and so forth? Yes, we can. Yes, we can, but not in the traditional ways. We have to adopt innovative solutions. We have to go in for a creative thinking. And that is the different approach that this SDG framework looks at sharing with the knowledge field. I've already spoken about the governance structures. Next, please. We are looking at a very student-centric approach. When we look at SDG partnerships with universities or colleges, every student, first thing, we make him aware, him or her aware, capture his attention. He decides or she decides which area really interests her. This thing. So, this is my belonging. We nurture that area and then convert him into one SDG, our soldier, so to say. So they become passionate about it, and then we withdraw and they take the thing forward. This is what we want our next generation to be prepared for. Next, please. I would like to give certain examples related to different goals, just to give ideas, spur ideas in our young minds as to what can they do. Because most often this is the question people say, oh, I'm only a student. What can I do? It's a big problem. What can I do? So you can do. For example, in Karnataka alone, we have estimated that about 1 lakh metric tons. During the COVID times, we realized that 1 lakh metric tons of perishable vegetables and fruits were almost at the verge of being destroyed, because the markets which were there in Delhi or elsewhere or abroad, they could not do any transportation. So what is the way forward? If only we have that Atmanirbhar, self-reliant agro-processing in a decentralized manner. Suppose I'm producing pineapple and I have surplus pineapple. I can't store it just like that. Maybe I go in for CFTRI technology. I go for sun drying of pineapple slices. They can be preserved over time. And then I market them as a niche vitamin C suppliers, which today is the biggest kavacha against COVID-19 for immunity enhancing. So in this way, we look at decentralized utilization of our own resources, both manpower and natural, and find out how best we can add value to the resources. Otherwise, just imagine that farmer would have just been pauperized and led to committing suicides if you don't do this. Therefore, this is where a short-term as well as a long-term strategy lies for SDG 2. Quality education, I can't really emphasize too much. We know that apart from the academic degrees or syllabus, curriculum grasping, what you need is a skill for employment or entrepreneurship. Either you are a job creator or you're a job seeker. Is the present system institutionally preparing us for that? Coming to gender equality, I saw some of my young women or girls participants in this thing. 50% of our population has to be brought on par, at least by 2030. Let's not push it further. Next slide, please. Clean water and sanitation is something we all know the importance of, but you'll be surprised that a big portion of people are still not having it. You can go on creating more and more projects, but can you save what you are getting? Some very good examples of conservation of water, then recycling, reuse, etc. There, can we not replicate it? Once we know somebody is invented, why reinvent the wheel? Let's replicate. And for that, what is required? The community awareness and community adoption of that, customization of that is what is going to make a difference. So one person doing it doesn't make a difference, but every one of us doing it makes a difference. And who makes this difference is our youth. Coming to decent work and economic growth, industry innovation, again, youngsters require the entrepreneurship spirit to be developed. Let them not be dependent on placements and jobs and a typical streams of career. That's not the end of it. We need to look at diversified opportunities with us and create more and more opportunities. That's the way forward for sustainability. Next one, please. If you look at smart city program, I'm sure most of you are aware of that. So how have we tried to come up with this smart city project? We created certain areas where we want to showcase how a good sustainable city can be. Now the question is, why all the cities should not be, and why just cities? Why all villages should not be smart? So these are areas where, again, the local youth, instead of migrating to better cities, whether within the country or abroad, let them be more enthusiastic about developing their own cities or villages into model areas, and that's how the entire state or nation can become a developed nation. And that's what is sustainability all about. Energy consumption, I'm sure all of us know how limited are the resources, natural resources. So we move on to e-vehicles, or we move on to clean energy, bicycling, or public transport for that matter. Finally, I would talk about goal 17, which again talks about partnerships. So we have to look at good amount of networking, and it should start from your neighborhood. If you are a good networking person, you will do it very much within your neighborhood, and that talent can be further expanded. Tomorrow you will be in a multinational company, you may be in a government sector, but networking pays its dividends, and therefore that is the need of the hour, because we learn so much from others, and we are able to save that much time in relearning the whole thing. Next one. I would like to share an example of Sweden, where youth and academic SDG collaboration has been done. So the issues that I've mentioned have already been done, whether it's a teaching role, collaborative role, knowledge role, for evaluation or measurement of SDG framework implementation, or advocacy role. All this is doable by us, each and every institution. All we need is, we need volunteers, we need that mindset, we need that interest that, yes, it is in my self-interest to be part of this game. And not just, I'm not doing it for anybody else, it's for myself, it's for my good, and in my good lies the good of the community, society, nation, and the world. Last slide is the way forward. So why am I here interacting with you? I request your organizational partnerships and networks to take this forward, wherein my center in Karnataka, at least, we can engage with the different institutions, academic institutions, and we can do all these roles which Sweden has already shown us, and we can take our development at a fast forward mode. I'm sure all of us, all of you would be excited enough as I am to share these, and I look forward to getting suggestions, your ideas, and my coordinator Shobha's number, email ID has been shared. Dhruv can coordinate later also. So we are available for you 24/7. Let's make our world a better place. Why better? Best place to live in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shalini ma'am, for that very encouraging and inspiring keynote address. We have had so many comments coming in on our Facebook and YouTube channels. We love how you have connected that to quality of education, then showed various examples and given the opportunity for students to work with you. I mean, at QS, we're so proud that we are leading this movement. We ourselves are a carbon neutral company. We got certified last year because we believe that if we don't start at inspecting ourselves, how can we bring change in others? And today, with that particular certification we are also supporting the Amazonian Rainforest Conservation Project in collaboration with Natural Capital Partners, helping to grow and protect the Amazon rainforest. We are here in Bangalore, and with your support, ma'am, we would like to see and lead the movement for making a big change in how students and institutions perceive SDGs and how they use these to make the world a better place. As you said, the best place for us. So thank you for your time, ma'am. We really are truly honored. I'd like to thank you, and we look forward to our future discussions. And if you have any words to our four student participants, they have actually made some very good recommendations.
I
We
have
would like
seen,
to send you.
I've seen the comments. Yeah.
Yeah, and we would like to send you the report after this as well, and we'll explore future collaboration. So thank you so much, ma'am, for
Thank you very
joining us.
much. Wish you all the best. Thank you.
Right. It was wonderful to have Dr. Shalini with us. I think that this is the exact mechanism that we students required. In Bangalore, we have a number of enthusiastic students that are wishing to engage in humanitarian activities. So through this mechanism, I'm sure that we can achieve our goals for 2030. Thank you, Dr. Shalini.
Thank you very much.
All right. So I think
if you like to have another round and engage with your panel on the next few minutes. Yeah.
Yep, we'll have a quick short round of a few questions over here. So I'd like to bring in back the four students. These are just quick questions. You can answer them in less than a sentence. So if, for example, you were the chancellor of your hypothetical college, what is the one sustainable development goal that you believe should be implemented, and the one reason why it is so important? We'll start with Mehak.
I think the one goal should be climate action, because I think we all have discussed a lot of things as to why and what is wrong in what we're doing and what we should be doing. And all of it has a very direct impact on climate action. So I think goal 13, climate action, will be the one that I would like to try to inculcate the most in my university.
Mansa, what about you? What do you think is the one goal that is most imperative?
If I was the chancellor, I would probably encourage my cell, or rather my incubation centers, to be more SDG driven rather than just being on the technical side. All goals are pretty important. I've even visited communities in and around my campus, and it's really nice to know the viewpoints that they have. Again, clean water, sanitation, climate change, all of those, provided your SDGs are given importance to, I think the students can take it forward from there.
Right. Ruthvi, what do you have to say if you were to implement one SDG at the earliest? What would it be?
I think I would implement food security, because at a college, students come from all walks of life, and they might not get the nutrition needed, and this would actually in turn harm their education also. So I think for the students to thrive and for a better community, I would first make sure about food security. I would ensure.
Okay, that's very interesting, considering how at the current stage, our country went into lockdown as well, and there was a mass migration that took place. So in universities that are placed in rural development areas such as Ashoka and from where I belong, Jindal, so food security is one sort of an SDG that could be tackled for the communities that live around. So that's a very interesting point. Ambika, what do you have to say? Another SDG that you believe is important, maybe in context to Bangalore, because that's where you study?
I think I would advocate for the sustainable cities and the sustainable communities so that students and the communities can come together and work on a wider spectrum of SDG goals that they wish to work on.
That's true. I mean, SDG number 11, that's sustainable cities and communities. For universities that are based in urban cities is one sort of an SDG in which they can mobilize different SDGs through it. So yeah, I think we've had such a great and enthusiastic panel over here today. It's been a lovely discussion. I've enjoyed spending time with the four of you discussing your various ideas. I really hope that this goes on to motivate other students from different parts of the country, and from understanding what Dr. Shalini had to say, universities move on to collaborate with different organizations to implement these SDGs. So if we have universities across India working towards the 2030 plan, like Dr. Shalini said, it's very much possible that we can achieve our targets. So I would like to thank you all for being here with us today at QS iGauge. To the viewers that are watching and that have spent over the course of time this 1 hour with us, please subscribe to QS's YouTube page, and also watch out for the January event that is going to take place, in which these ideas that we have discussed are actually going to happen in real. So I thank you all again for being with us today. Take care. See you. Bye-bye.